Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the December 12th, 2017 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. If you haven't already done so, copies of our agenda are on either side of the room. Feel free to pick up a copy and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to the things that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment which is under item 5 tonight, which was reserved for questions and comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda. At that point in the meeting, I will invite anyone that has questions or comments of a general nature to please come to the podium and introduce themselves, and we will welcome hearing from you at that time. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would like to ask everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl? Here. Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to the minutes of prior council meetings. We have one set of the minutes to approve tonight. Those are the minutes from our regular village council meeting of December 5th, 2017. If there are no changes, corrections, comments, or concerns, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve our meeting minutes from December 5th, 2017 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. Awesome. Those minutes are approved. And that brings us right to item 4, which we reserve for proclamations. And tonight we don't just have a proclamation, we have some very special sports legends here in our audience tonight. Yes, as you may know, our very own Downers Grove North boys cross country team won state championship for the state of Illinois and also finished 4th in the entire country. An amazing accomplishment, and we're very proud to have them here tonight and would like to take a moment to recognize both the team and their coaches and families and all the supporters and everyone that made it happen. But of course, in order to do this properly, I have to do it like a sports announcer, so bear with me here. Whereas on Sunday, November 4th, 2017, the Downers Grove North Trojan Boys Cross Country Team won the first team state championship in program history by winning the Class 3A state title at Peoria's Detweiler Park. And whereas the Trojans dominated with 4 top 25 all-state performances and 5 scoring runners among the top 30. And whereas Downers North finished 2nd in Neuqua Valley last year and finished 2nd in 2013. And whereas the team received a warm welcome caravan complete with police escort to return the school for a trophy celebration on November 4th, 2017. And whereas the Trojans coaching staff is head coach John Sipple, as well as the former head coach Will Kupish and assistant coach Jill Blondell. Now, therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby congratulate the Trojans and proclaim Tuesday, December 12th, 2017, as Downers Grove North High Trojan Boys Cross Country Team Day in the Village of Downers Grove. And now I'd like to ask the team and coaches to please come up front. I'd love to present you with this proclamation.
Excellent job. Very
All right, so I know you guys have practiced on how to do this. So there's going to be a few rows and then lots of pictures of the trophies. Unfortunately, Village Hall isn't that big. We're going to need a new one in order to support all the future state championships. All right, there you go. Bring it in a little bit, and I don't know, maybe we'll do one of these things here. No, yes, and close it down. We need more.
Not yet.
All right, congratulations on the round of applause. Once again, a very hearty congratulations and a round of applause for our state champions. Now, like they say in the infomercials, but wait, there's more. In the coming weeks, maybe months, but maybe weeks for this, one of the things that we'd like to do is put together an official road sign that will be posted at a convenient street sign or street pole near Downers Grove North, recognizing your state championship victory. So we'll get that out there as soon as possible so you can see that every day to and from school. Furthermore, it is our tradition to ask state champions to also serve as the grand marshals in the annual Independence Day Parade. So any of you that might be in town on the 4th of July and would like to ride on top of one of the hook and ladders through the parade, I would like to invite you and the coaches to join us and do that. Well, thank you again. Congratulations. Now, I don't know how public comments are going to top that, but we'll now move to item 5, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. If there are any members of the audience that have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to items not on tonight's agenda, we'd invite you to please come down to the podium, tell us who you are, and we welcome hearing from you. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Board and Mayor Tully. Scott Roush from 826 Rogers Street. And I'm not sure this is on the agenda, but I know we're working on the zoning, so I just wanted to reiterate the fact that kind of concerned with the zoning proposals for the ceiling height and density of housing in that area. As most of you know, if you cross Washington Street across the train tracks on the corner of Rogers and Whiffen, it's already quite the traffic hassle. So I would encourage strongly for the zoning along there to kind of be moved to transitional to prevent, we're not saying prevent condominiums or anything like that, but just prevent from putting high-density condominiums. And I don't know, I can't really find it anywhere specifically on here. I know we're talking about a bunch of zoning, but I know you're voting on it down the road, so I wanted to go on record. I sent an email, but from what I understand, not a lot of people did, so I plan on having a few more people showing up late to address this also. So.
Sure, we'll be touching upon aspects of that under item 8. I believe it's item 8B as in boy tonight. It's only a first reading. We're not voting anything tonight.
That I understand also.
Right.
So what's the best manner that residents that are concerned about traffic should convey to you guys before you vote, so you hear from a balance of people?
Sure, tonight's a good start. Email always works. Telephone also works.
Okay.
I think all of our contact information is available on the website. Mine's also on the website. It's 312-927-1562.
I can get that.
Fair enough. Or just find us downtown. We're usually, oh, wait a minute, here's a good example. I'll give you a heads up. This Saturday, we're having our monthly coffee with the council at the Downers Grove Public Library from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. And a good number of the village council members will be there, so I'll have another opportunity for anyone that would like to express their views on the topic to come join us. Thank you. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the public? Things that are not on tonight's agenda.
I'm just clarifying, will there be public time after the agenda items are addressed?
Yes.
Publicly?
Yes.
Okay, because that wasn't specified.
Yes.
Thank you.
I probably should have reiterated that at the outset, but there will be an opportunity for public comment with respect to everything that is on our agenda tonight. All right, hearing no other questions or comments of a general nature, then we will move to our consent agenda, which is item 6. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7, which is our active agenda. We have a number of items on tonight's active agenda. We will begin with item 7A as an apple. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance rezoning certain property located at 4340 Prince Street?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance rezoning certain property located at 4340 Prince Street as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance authorizing the extension of a special use to permit construction and redevelopment of a fueling station and a car wash at 1401-1445 Ogden Avenue to the date of March 20th, 2018?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance authorizing the extension of a special use to permit the construction and redevelopment of a fueling station and car wash at 1401-1445 Ogden Avenue until March 20th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. That brings us to item 7C as in Charlie. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 4632 Main Street?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 4632 Main Street as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Questions or comments with respect to members of the Village Council? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter passes unanimously, and I'd like to take a pause because I have a certificate, now that it is passed, historic landmark certificate for the Cameron House, a Harris Brothers home circa 1922, that I would like to present to the owners of 4632 Main Street, Brian and Karen Beechler. If either or both are present, I'd be happy to please come on down, and we'll treat you just like the cross-country team.
Do they get to ride on the photograph?
You know what? I said the 2018 parade, we're going to have all the landmark property owners ride the fire truck. We'll be our grand marshals. How about that? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, so who wants to it's not very heavy. Who wants to hold? Okay, right in the middle. Come on around, you guys. We'll get everybody in the picture. All the paparazzi here. One more. Here's the official one. Thank you very much. If you want to say that, no worries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm getting my steps in tonight. I love it. All right, that brings us to item 7D as in David. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1324 Maple Avenue?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution granting historic landmark designation for 1324 Maple Avenue as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience? Yes, there is. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Shannon Tully, 5413 Main Street. On behalf of the entire Friends of the Edwards House organization, we enthusiastically support both of the landmark designation proposals tonight. We are very pleased about the unprecedented number of wonderful homes that are being voluntarily landmarked, and also very pleased with the increasing diversity, style, history, and unique stories of these homes. We're grateful to the Beechlers and Kressels for undertaking this process, and we are also grateful to the neighborhood volunteers that supported them in the process, and also for the village for the encouraging framework that makes it all possible. And finally, we are most pleased with the community because it has broadly embraced the Friends of the Edwards House mission to advocate, educate, and celebrate historic preservation in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Cindy Zeski, 1130 Franklin Street. I too am a member of Friends of the Edwards House and a fellow landmarked homeowner, and I want to say welcome to the two new families. We have a lot of fun. And with that, I want to present our calendar of landmarked homes and remind everybody that it is up for sale at friendsoftheedwardshouse.com, and we have a limited number available left. So most of the landmarked homes are here, and they have a little story in the back. And so if anyone needs a last-minute Christmas gift, our website, friendsoftheedwardshouse.com. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. And I will just subtly hint to my colleagues in the Village Council they might not want to run out and buy one. But everybody else should. Shh. Don't want to ruin the surprise. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Hearing none. Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Still none. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Matter passes unanimously. And once again, I'm very proud to present the Kressels, David and Joan, with the Certificate of Historic Landmarking, the Century of Progress Home, circa 1936, located at 1324 Maple Avenue. Again, I would love to have the Kressels please come up. I'd love to present this with you. To you. And I'll just add my thanks on behalf of the village and the village council to all the wonderful homeowners that continue to voluntarily landmark their properties for the benefit not only of today's generation, but for many, many generations of Downers Grove residents. Thank you very much for doing it. It truly is a wonderful grassroots effort, and we're all the beneficiaries of it, so thank you very much. That then brings us to item 7F as in, 7E as in Edward. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance adopting the 2017 aggregate tax levy?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt the 2017 aggregate tax levy ordinance as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Just making sure. Questions or comments from members of the village council? Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I didn't touch on this last week, but last week I was not in favor of the village budget for 2018. This tax levy is essentially in support of that, and so I'll not be supporting it as well. Without rehashing the 18 meetings that we had, my list is the same as it was when we started the conversation. I don't think we're making enough progress on several issues, from cost trends to village hall to village infrastructure. This basically continues a negative slide of end-to-end sustainability, I think. It's the budget, not the levy. I understand that, but I don't want to be supportive of what essentially funds that budget, so I'll be voting no tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess to the contrary of the last remarks, I too voted against the budget last week, but one way or the other, we have an awful lot to do as a village. I may disagree with how we spend some of those dollars, but they do need to be raised in order to support the services that we provide to the entire community. So I'll be voting in favor tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting this ordinance, adopting the tax levy. And for anyone interested, I asked the question in the council questions, and you can check the council responses as to what happens if you don't pass a tax levy. It would be a total disaster. So in my opinion, if you vote against it, you're voting for a total disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? I have a comment, and I am not in favor of a total disaster, but I do want to comment on a few things. One, I think the village and all its residents should be very proud that the 2017 aggregate tax levy for the 7th year in a row is not increasing property taxes for village operations at all. That is a remarkable accomplishment by any measure. And Commissioner Barnett is right. It's very, very difficult to sustain, and I could not be more proud of this council, prior councils, and village staff for making that happen. Because while on the one hand we have not seen an increase in property taxes in the village of Downers Grove for operations for 7 years running, we nevertheless have maintained a AAA bond rating. We received numerous governmental finance and budget awards. We have an ISO Class 1 rated fire department putting in the top 1% of the entire nation. We have a CALEA certified excellent police department also putting it in the top 1% of the entire nation. So somehow, even though we don't raise property taxes, we're still able to deliver superior services to our community. Now, some, like Commissioner Barnett, may want to expand those services and bring in additional dollars in order to do that. And that's a community conversation that we need to have. But with the mind frame of the community right now, I'm not so sure that's where we're going. If folks want to come to us and future councils and say, please raise our property taxes so we can do X, Y, and Z, then that's what a community conversation is supposed to be. But frankly, I have been very much in favor of seeing if we can continue to maintain high-quality services without increasing our property tax levy for operations. And our staff has been innovative. They've been creative, and they've engaged in collaboration, cooperation, and in some cases where it makes sense, consolidation in order to achieve it. And in fact, many communities looked at Downers Grove to find out how can we continue to do this and do it within our means. So I'm very glad about that. What I'm not glad about is something very different than what Commissioner Waldeck said and very different than what Commissioner Barnett said, but this will become as no surprise to anyone who's been listening to anything I have to say for the last 7 years. And it requires a little bit of background. The Downers Grove Public Library is fantastic. It is a gem of our community. It provides excellent service, and it is extremely well used and popular within our community and communities beyond Downers Grove. So none of my comments should in any way, shape, or form be mistaken for any criticisms of one of our excellent public services here in the village of Downers Grove. That being said, I don't know if many people realize that the Downers Grove Public Library is a component of the village of Downers Grove, but it is separately governed. It has its own board of trustees and has its own director that reports to that board of trustees. And they set their own property tax levy and establish their own budget. As a component of the village, we get the levy given to us essentially to either thumbs up or thumbs down. We do not have a line item veto. I do not have a line item veto. I can't say the property tax levy for the library is too high and cut it down. We either pass it or we don't. If we don't, yes, that probably would be a disaster because it would shut down the library. But more than that, because it's a component of the village's overall property tax levy, we would essentially gut, I don't know, a good third or more of our own revenue, and we just can't do that. But that's an impossible situation that it puts this village council in, because here's what I'm not happy about. I just said that the village of Downers Grove has not increased its property tax levy for 7 years running for operations. In contrast, the Downers Grove Public Library has increased its property tax levy each of the last 5 years. Approximately 5% in 2013, another 5% in 2014, 3.5% in 2015, 4.5% in 2016, and right now they're proposing a 2.75% increase. I cannot support that. And my only choice to send a message to the community, to send a message to the Downers Grove Public Library Board of Trustees, and to future councils is with my vote. Because there's only two things we can do: appoint people and vote one way or the other with respect to the library property tax budget. My concern is not that the Library Board of Trustees doesn't try, because quite frankly, we have a relatively new director, and by all measures, she's outstanding. We have a brand new president of the Downers Grove Public Library Board. He's been in the position all of 10 seconds. And we have a number of new Library Board of Trustees. So I'm not suggesting, again, that they necessarily are in line for criticism, because many of them are new. But this has been a long-running issue, in my opinion, and every year I've said something about it. And every year I've said, well, I'm not happy about it, but there's nothing I can do about it. How could I possibly vote against the property tax levy, because it would be a disaster? Well, enough is enough. I'm going to vote against this, most likely, seeing where the rest of my colleagues go, because I think it's important to send a message that I firmly believe that Downers Grove Public Library can do the same thing that the Village of Downers Grove has done, which is continue to maintain high-quality services that are the envy of other communities without increasing property taxes for operations. Now, can we continue to do that forever? No. But looking back 5 years, the Library Board hasn't done it once. And I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think you should find it acceptable. And I think it's a challenge to this new Library Board and future Library Boards and future village councils to make sure that we are more consistent and in our approach to fiscal responsibility, and demonstrate that whenever possible, we don't need to raise property taxes in order to continue to deliver quality services to our residents. So that's a challenge I'm putting out there, and I want to send as strong a message as I possibly can without creating a disaster. So with that, I'd like to call the roll, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Nay. That motion passes 5-2. We've averted disaster. That brings us then to item 7F as in Frank. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance? Well, actually, I can combine these, can't I? No? They won't let me do that? State law?
Well, I can read it. Just say item F and I'll read it.
No, I'll read it. I was just like we can combine the abatements.
Correct.
Rules. All right. Item 7F is in Frank. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the 31st day of December 2017 for the Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 2, otherwise known as the Downers Grove Downtown Service Area?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the 31st day of December 2017 for the Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 2 as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes 6-1. I'm going to take Commissioner White's suggestion and say I'd now like to ask for a motion with respect to item 7G.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the 31st day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 4 as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter passes 6-1. And that brings us to item 7H as in Henry.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the 31st day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 5.
Thank you. Questions or comments from... Thank you. I knew there was going to be a second. Questions or comments from the audience? Questions or comments from the Village Council? Probably should have asked this earlier. These levies are specified for particular debt payments.
These levies are for special service areas.
I'm sorry, special service areas, right, that we've established over time. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter also passes 6-1. That brings us to item 7I, as in I, as in innovation. We have a motion with respect to item 7I.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the third day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 6 as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from the village council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The matter also passes 6-1. That brings us to item 7J, as in joy.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the first day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 7 as presented.
Second.
Other questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes 6-1 and brings us to item 7K, as in Kringle. Do I have a motion with respect to that one?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017 and ending on the first day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 8.
Second.
Questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter passes 6-1. That brings us to item 7L, as in log, or otherwise known as Yule log. Do I have a motion with respect to item 7L?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance for the levying of taxes for the fiscal year commencing on the first day of January 2017, ending on the first day of December 2017 for Village of Downers Grove Special Service Area Number 9 as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council?
So I do want to note that apparently the amount being levied is zero.
These are backup SSAs for stormwater facilities.
Exactly,
The
yeah.
majority of them. So-
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for the 011?
So there was a lot of reading for zero levy.
But we have to preserve it.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So in other words, we're getting nothing, but we had to read all of those,
Because we're preserving it, right.
just in case we ever have to.
Several of them fall in the same category. There's no-
Duly noted. Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Nay.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter also passes 6-1. That brings us to the end of the first half of our active agenda. The second half of our active agenda is a series of abatement ordinances, which, as we previously explained, you levy and then you abate, which means you don't collect what you just levied. Why do we do that? Because, again, state law. But first, in order to speed things along, I would ask for a motion to combine ordinances M through U under item 7 on our active agenda.
We move that this council combine for a single vote the motions to adopt ordinance number 2017-7615 through ordinance 2017-7623, a total of, looks like 9 separate ordinances for a single vote.
Second.
Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to any of these items? In all the years I've been involved with the village, no one's ever opposed an abatement ordinance. Any questions or comments from members of the village council?
It's on the motion to combine.
Do we need to have a motion on the motion to combine? We need to have a vote on the motion to combine and then a motion on the combined, I'm sorry, a vote on the combined motion.
This should be a motion to, are we separating them?
I just did. So.
Oh,
You just did.
I would just suggest we make
Amending.
one motion that adopts all of them.
Is that a motion? Okay.
I mean, unless
A
that's
motion to
unless that's not
combine the
compliant.
adoption. of-
Combine and adopt.
I think that's what he was trying to do.
I'll amend to combine and adopt.
And I think that's the way everyone understands it.
Good.
Yes, fair enough.
That was yes.
So I'm getting the head nod that we're legal. All right.
Motion to combine and adopt.
Yes.
Motion to combine and adopt has been made and seconded. Any questions or comments on that clarifying point from members of the audience? Any questions or comments on that from members of the Village Council? If not, then may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The combined motion and all the referenced ordinances are adopted unanimously. That brings us to the end of our active agenda and brings us to item 8, which is our first reading of our workshop agenda. We have several items on this agenda tonight. Our workshop or first reading agenda is more informal. We are not voting on any of these items or taking any final action tonight. Typically, staff will present these items for discussion and consideration by the Village Council only, and obviously input from the audience as well. We flip things around a little bit and usually start with questions or comments from the council, and then we'll go to the audience. So with that, I would like to ask Village Manager David Fieldman to please introduce the items under our first reading or workshop agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Tully and Council. The first item is an ordinance authorizing the extension of a planned unit development for the property at 3300 Finley Road. Here to present background information on this item is our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council members. As Manager Fieldman noted, this is a planned unit development extension request for 3300 Finley Road. Properties on the northwest side of town at Finley Road, adjacent to the tollways there. They were approved for PUD for approximately 915 square feet of signage about a year ago, and they've requested an extension of the PUD. They're still looking for a sign contractor to make those changes to the project. We've been in discussions with them for the past few months, but they've requested an extension. If there's any questions, I can answer those for you at this time.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
I asked the question to staff earlier. Kind of concerned about the intent. We've granted a year ago, and it appears nothing has happened. There's been a comment that staff has been in discussion. I was wondering if the discussion was any more than your time's running out, better ask for an extension or you lose it, because it seems like the intent here is to have the sign without necessarily going for a PUD. I don't think it's the only way. I understand they want the sign, and I'd love them to keep the sign. However, the rules state that they need a PUD. We can grant a one-year extension, but I would like to see them move along a little faster. Personally, I'd like to see a 6-month extension rather than a year, just to move this along. Because I get the impression that the intent is to have the sign without necessarily moving towards a PUD. Just a thought, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience? Any final questions or comments from members of the council? Hearing none. Next item, please.
So the next item on the first reading is the discussion on the downtown development regulatory framework. As you may recall, we've been discussing this at 4 council meetings, tonight being the 4th. You see, we've been working on this project for just about a year now. And we started the Comprehensive Planning Ad Hoc Committee with 2 meetings in the early part of this year, 3 Plan Commission meetings, which started soon after the comprehensive plan was adopted. We came before the Village Council first in September. In early October, we held 2 business and property owner meetings, and then subsequently have had 1 meeting for the past 3 months to talk about the downtown development regulatory framework. Based on these various discussion points, the proposal was to develop 4 zoning districts: the downtown core, downtown edge 1, downtown edge 2, downtown transition. This is the map based on discussions most recently where we what the proposed framework would be and where those districts would be located on the downtown map here, with the core being closest to Main and Curtis, and then extending out with the edge 1, edge 2, and then the transition areas as well. We also talked about bulk regulations. So this also includes how tall a person's building, an owned property owner's building could be, if there's a minimum height, what the setbacks are, how many dwelling units per acre could be installed or provided on a property, how many parking spaces if you were going to do residential, and then how many parking spaces would be needed if there was a business there. One item that needs to be further discussed, and if this moves forward would be further examined, would be the front and the rear setbacks in the downtown transition zoning district. At the last meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the potential impacts of a setback on the downtown transition properties. So That was determined to be further examined if this project moves forward with some additional review of the existing properties and what that impact would be on individual properties to come up with the understanding of a front and rear setback. Along with those bulk requirements, then we also looked at the downtown regulations in terms of land uses. This is the land use table that's appeared in various packets. We've updated it based on the previous discussions last month to include these permitted uses in the downtown zoning and downtown transition. Permitted uses and then special uses in downtown transition as well. Those are shown in the table. It's just a little hard to read on that graphic. So those are those that we talked about at the last meeting as well. A couple other items that we discussed over this process were design guidelines. We are planning on updating those and tailoring those to each of the 4 districts. What we request in the core might not be the same as what we request in the transition in terms of a commercial development. And then to implement them in the current manner as well, like we currently do. We also had a discussion about public participation. We determined at that point, and council determined as well, that we needed additional time to discuss that. So we are pulling that out of sort of this framework right now. We'll be considering that separately at a later date to talk about public participation, how to get people involved in the process a little bit earlier, and to get some public input at that point as well. If there's any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer those for the village council.
Thank you, Stan. Just a few things. One, I think that some of the changes that are being proposed at the front end will certainly address some of the issues that I know were objectives of the public participation. Not that public participation shouldn't still occur, but some of the concerns and frustrations that were expressed as a reason for a different path there, I think, are actually being, in some respects, addressed by some of the changes that are being proposed, which would prevent some of the things that were being expressed as concerns in the first instance. But we'll see how that plays out. Second, the permitted uses, thank you. And I forget, and Ms. Petrarca will set me straight on this. The wine boutique, actually one of the things we're talking about is why should that be wine, because there are also beer boutiques and it's essentially the same thing. So I want to make sure that we don't inadvertently exclude a craft beer boutique just because it's beer and not wine when it's essentially the same business model. That's one thing that occurred because we actually have some businesses that are interested in doing exactly that. I don't want to scare them away from our downtown because of what we have here. And then last, I really appreciated staff sending me, all of us, a summary of the input that we've received so far from property owners in the downtown area, what their concerns have been, and how the proposal either does or does not jive with that, and what may be the response to those concerns. I still personally have some concerns with, and I haven't resolved them in my mind, with 5109 Main Street, 915 Rogers, 5 Washington, and I know we received an email recently from property owners at 928 and 932 Maple Avenue, which we should probably add to the chart. But I'm still struggling with balancing what we're trying to accomplish here on an overall basis with the interests of particular property owners. I'm still trying to strike that proper balance, and I don't know if I'm there yet with respect to those parcels. But I'll stop there and see what my colleagues have to think or have to say. Questions or comments at this point from members of the council? No?
I'll jump in.
Go. Commissioner Barnett.
Got some of the same concerns that you have, Mayor, in terms of specific areas. As the map is drawn now, I would have a hard time going forward with it because there's a couple of areas in particular that I think are contrary to what we were trying to accomplish. We largely started this process irrespective of a particular site because after several years, 5 maybe, of fairly high-paced development, we were feeling a need to revisit things and ask if we're on the right path, and we were getting mixed signals from the public on that, some, of course, on both sides of the issue. But opening that up and asking the question, why are we doing this? And I think it was largely driven by a general inclination to want to drag the hooks a little bit on some of the development downtown. And fears of that spreading, creeping beyond the areas that people sort of think of as downtown. There was some environmental, not environmental like EPA, but creating an environment stuff that had to do with that sort of second lower tier right in the heart of the downtown, trying to create certain views and feelings of walking pedestrians and people that are enjoying our downtown. And I think we're still missing it on a couple of these, but I still also hold out a lot of hope that the continuing conversations that Stan was talking about some of the DT-specific setbacks would help us strike that balance that we're trying to find. Just to continue on the mayor's specifics there, northeast corner of Maple and Washington is one that I think we probably could fix with setbacks. I feel the same way about the southwest corner of Washington and Rogers. That DE2, I think, could probably do what we needed to do if it had setbacks that were different than what DT sets it right now. And that DE2 on the northwest corner of Washington and Maple was one that I think, if I recall most of the conversations, we were trying to find a way to sort of step down as we went around the corner. What did that look like from the southeast corner there? What did that feel like to walkers? And I think that holding that DT2 on the corner achieves some of that because of the additional setbacks. But I don't know that it matters for those two parcels that we've had asked to make DE1 on the west end of that. I think those could easily be DE1 and still meet at least what I thought I heard were the council's kind of intentions and goals of trying to put that DE2 on the corner. So, we can all go through each one of these. I need to see and understand what comes out of the DT setback conversation before I can feel real good about what's here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council? Commissioner White?
Well, first, to put this in context, I see this as the next step in the implementation of the vision contained in the comprehensive plan. That's what we're trying to. We're trying to take what was a visionary document and turn it into reality. With respect to what's here, I support what's here with some of the same caveats that have been discussed before. How we can tailor the DT setbacks to not excessively impinge upon existing buildings. The property on the east side of Washington, for example, just north of Maple, is very problematic with the DT setbacks as originally proposed. So that's an open issue that I won't be prepared to support until we settle that. And then the two property corners discussed before, the southwest corner of Washington and Rogers and the northwest corner of Maple and Washington, there's some close calls there on some of that, and as with Martelli, I'm not sure I'm totally settled. And then there's a small number of similar examples, but other than those relatively, in terms of the big picture, some very specific limited exceptions, the general direction of this to preserve the downtown core, everything else, the general direction I'm very much supportive of, with other open issues to resolve in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just to pick up on two things that you said, I don't want to undermine or in any way take away from the tremendous amount of work that's been done to implement the vision of the comprehensive plan, but as is often the case when you're dealing with something that's aspirational and visionary, taking it from concept down to street level, exactly, literally down to street level, is a little more difficult, it's a little more challenging. So we're dealing with the street level kind of stuff right now, so it doesn't surprise me that that's where literally the rubber is hitting the road and it's becoming a little bit difficult. But I do think there's a great deal. I haven't heard anyone say that the baby should be thrown out with the bathwater. There's a lot of good work here. It's just we're getting down to some of the finer details. At the end of the day, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. We just have to work through some of these issues, and I'm sure that in conjunction with the property owners and the community, we can. But I also want to recognize and acknowledge and appreciate how much work has been done that we haven't had much issue with, and that is consistent with the bigger vision. We're just down to the real brass tacks right now, and it gets harder. The lower you get in terms of the detail, the more difficult it often gets.
Let's focus on what we agree on. And continue working on the remaining issues. But I think, in terms of what was presented to us this evening, we agree on far more. That's right. Which doesn't eliminate the fact that there are specific issues that need to be solved. But if we step back and look at it from a higher altitude, most of this, I believe, we're on the right track, generally speaking.
Just wanted to jump in there and add that just for clarification, even though we are actually talking about ground level things, including what is the setback in a proposed district, what this actually is a framework, which means we would take this information and actually prepare ordinances in an official map. It'll take us several months to do that. So even if there's a motion and a vote on a framework, these things absolutely are expected to change, especially at the detail level, in the coming months. So there's plenty of opportunity for more conversation with property owners and among the council, both formally and informally.
I think that's so important that it's worth repeating.
Seriously? I don't think I could repeat that. Basically, these are the... This is just to direct staff on what ordinances and maps to prepare. These are the bullet points, if you will. Even though some of the bullet points are at the very detailed level, staff would take the direction once the council votes on the framework, go off, do the ordinances, prepare the maps, bring them back to the council for the actual review and a vote. There's plenty of opportunity for more dialogue among all parties during that several-month period. We can do it formally at meetings, and we also encourage it informally with emails and one-on-one meetings with some of the residents here. They come into my office and Stan's office, and we can chat through these things.
Thank you, and I was serious when I said I think that was worth repeating, because obviously perception is often reality, and when folks start seeing colors and lines drawn on maps, they think that's it. And there's no way to possibly make adjustments literally at the street or block level. So I think it's worth repeating and making sure everyone's aware of that. Commissioner Wallach.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned street block level. We're like taking a brush and painting it over a block or a certain section, and we designate it this way: it's blue, it's green, it's red. We probably could, as we work through this, come up with the exceptions, the lot level, if you will. Would we be in trouble with, for example, spot zoning? Could we anticipate variations? I don't know. Something that occurred to me through the conversations.
One of the challenges with any zoning ordinance is you generally try to put in rules that are applicable for multiple properties, and then as unique situations come up, offer venues and processes to allow for exceptions and variations. It's just a recognition that as hard as you try, you cannot really treat every single property the exact same way, even though that is the general goal. So we feel like we have great processes for exceptions and variations built in, several zoning tools, PUDs, those kinds of things. So the answer, I guess, is yes, we have those processes built in.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't necessarily want to repeat a whole lot of what's been already said, but yeah, I do generally support what is in front of us tonight. I'm very interested to see what the final setback determinations are in the DT area. I think that is outcome determinative in terms of what we do with certain properties. And as has already been said, the corner at Rogers and Washington is a concern. We've heard folks say that we don't want something big and impactful. We've also had current property owners and perhaps some future property owners say they want to be able to max it out. It's a difficult balance to strike. So that's one I will continue to consider and struggle with. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments at this point? Obviously, we'll come back after we hear from members of the audience. And on that note, perfect segue. I'll open it up for questions or comments from members of the audience on this item. Anything that's been presented so far, please feel free to come down to the podium. If you would be so kind as to share your name so we know who you are, we'd welcome hearing from you. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, Art Holston, 5226 Carpenter Street. I got a little confused in the presentation. Does the framework include setting guidelines of, or at least a process where the village can work with builders so the buildings better match the downtown, look? I mean, I think so some buildings have gone in recently that really are just, they're like eyesores from downtown, trying to keep a nice, quaint, typical downtown versus a modern, big downtown type of thing. And I got confused if that's part of the future discussions or is that part of this framework? If somebody could maybe help me understand that.
Sure. It's a combination of both. So the framework says that we generally are accepting of our design guidelines as they are, but they need to be slightly modified and tailored to each particular zoning district. In addition to that, it says the public participation process, i.e. the application of those design guidelines, is up for further discussion at a later time.
Would that be part of these ordinances that you'll be bringing back in 3 or 4 months after this framework, or would it be done after those ordinances?
We anticipate a framework-like discussion on those items separately, so we don't know if they will end up being sort of joined up by the time we put the ordinances together, or will they still be being worked on at the framework level.
Okay. I personally would like to see it, I think it's important it's done at the same time. But my concern would be is we need to put the new framework in, and then, we spend another, I don't know how long it takes, so I'm just going to say maybe another 6 months to a year to work out those details, and all of a sudden, it's a year from now, nothing's really changed, and, new buildings could be built downtown that still kind of...
Well, actually, to that point, then you should be strongly in favor of our moving forward with at least the first piece, because otherwise we'll spend another year and a half, and that will change. And I guarantee you'll be more upset.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is move forward, as Commissioner White said, with the things that we agree upon, and there are different buckets here for those who've been following the multiple meetings that we've had on this. One is with respect to things such as height, width, setback, and whatnot, which candidly is going to address a lot of the issues that we heard about.
Okay.
Because once you start defining the box that can be built in, it drives some of these, not all, drives some of these issues. So that's bucket number one. Bucket number two then has to do with the uses. So now you have these boxes on different lots, but what are the uses that are permitted? What uses can be brought forward on a special use basis? That's a different conversation. The third one is now you're getting into aesthetics. And as you know, we can get everyone in this room and look at a painting, and some of you will like it and some of you will hate it.
Right.
So it's much more difficult to legislate taste and design and whatnot. So one of the things that we're driving for is to, rather than try to say what paint color should be, we're more trying to involve the public earlier on so that there are concerns about whether something fits or not from a divergent set of perspectives, that there's an opportunity for a developer to hear that early when changes can still be made as opposed to later.
Right, and that's
but all that will be hashed out as we go forward as part of this process. The reality is the comprehensive plan took us how many years to review and readopt with changes, and this is the next logical step. But I think some of these things, it would behoove us to move forward, because to hold everything off until the end, I think would be more likely to result in the concern that you raised.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Other questions or comments on this? Good evening, welcome.
Hi, Mike Fredericks from 919 Rogers. Okay, as far as these meetings go, still the last meeting you had that regarded this a couple weeks ago, I still hadn't gotten any notification that you were even having these meetings. So as far as being involved in these meetings, we have been left out. My neighbor, the same thing. She reached out to Stan, and finally we got notification that this was going to be on the agenda for tonight. My sister and I and her and my neighbor, we had all looked on the village website and didn't show anything out that we couldn't find anything about the last meeting. So as far as the transparency and being involved, I feel that we haven't been involved in this as much as we should be. Second off, I haven't had a chance to look at what changes have been proposed now. I would suggest that the board still hold some more meetings afterward. They have all the residents in the area be able to still go over and talk, because I hope that the meetings that I have done have brought some things to light and have made some changes. But like I said, I haven't seen what has been done now. That I would think it would be beneficial that if the village board had some more meetings off afterward and discussed with the residents what they feel are problems with your plan, then maybe you would get some more insight.
Sure, and obviously I'm sorry if anyone isn't aware of when the meetings are being held. Obviously we publicize them through all the normal channels. The additional step of sending personal emails to folks obviously is something that we could do as well for people who have raised particular issues with their properties, I don't see why we couldn't do that. But again, there'll be an opportunity on Saturday from 9 to 10 at the Downers Grove Public Library. It's another opportunity, and all of us are available at any point in time for input. I think someone asked earlier, would there be additional avenues and opportunities for input and communication? Let me just stress something. You don't have to wait for a meeting to communicate with us. The list that I talked about of the concerns we've received, none of those came through meetings. These are people who communicated with us directly.
Well, I tried several times to get a hold of Councilman White and left messages.
Right. Well, I don't want to. I'm just saying. Yeah, I understand. I understand, but I just want to let everyone know. I just want to let everyone know that my phone number is listed on the village website. Don't wait for a meeting to reach out to any and all of us. Obviously, everybody's very busy, and sometimes people can't come to meetings because they're busy. We understand that, which is why we try to have as many different venues for communication and input as possible. And we're not moving this forward like some bullet train. This is something that's being very mindful and methodical, but as you can hear from some residents, they'd like us to make some progress. But again, it's all about striking the balance, and that's what we're really trying to do, is strike a balance between the overall objectives of the comprehensive plan, what we've received from the public more broadly, and now we're really down to almost the individual property owner level, which obviously is just as important.
If you give me your phone number, I'll call tomorrow.
You guys can take that offline. Good evening, welcome.
Hey, good evening. My name is Dan O'Donnell. I'm at 835 Rogers. And I had two things to say, actually. This should only take a couple seconds. And the gentleman before me took one of my, or made one of my points that I was trying to make. I know there's only so much you can do in terms of notifying residents, especially those directly impacted by, some of these decisions you're making. And I live on the southwest corner of Washington and Rogers, so I feel as though I am one of those individuals. But if it wasn't for my neighbor calling me at work today, I don't think I would have known anything about this. And again, I realize there's only so much you can do, but I feel as though there's likely a lot of people that live around me that have no idea that these discussions are even taking place. And I'm going to take it upon myself to educate those people, but I don't know what the solution may be. But if there would be maybe a more efficient way of notifying people, perhaps you would get more feedback. But anyway. I just wanted to mention, I came in a little bit late, and I don't know that I really couldn't see many of the slides, but I would like to go on record that living in the area, again, on Rogers and Washington, I am very much against any plan that would enable a developer to build a 60 or 70-foot building on Rogers. I think it's there are some condos on the street, but it's still the neighborhood has very much of a neighborhood feel, and I can only imagine whatever a 5, 6, 7-story condominium building would do to that. I think it would destroy it. So anyway, I just wanted to go on record, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, and please feel free to avail yourself of the more detailed maps and whatnot that are on the website. So you don't have to worry about the slides. You can look at it at your own leisure in much more detail. Thank you. Good evening, welcome. You've been very patient.
Thank you. I am Teresa Schultz. I'm the owner of 928 Maple. I've addressed some things with you in the past and respect all your positions and appreciate the opportunities. And it sounds like there's been discussion, so I really do appreciate that. I'm really just up here to reiterate my position on staying with D1 for both this parcel and 932 Maple. The building owner is also here to represent his parcel. But just to be reasonable in my request is the build, and I reviewed some of the videotape from the last meeting, and just so that I can really listen into your positions too and why you've made some of your own decisions. So I had time to reflect off of that, and I still feel strongly about staying D1. One of my biggest impacts and benefits is the parking garage, which is directly on my property to the north, and it is a visual obstruction. And the building height of the parking garage, and I looked online, I could not find it, I think reasonably it could be about 60 feet. And the property to the west, which is Marquis on Maple, it is 5 stories, but it's also at 70 feet. So I've looked on some public record and tried to find some plans. And they were allowed to build to the sidewalk. They've elected to do a setback, which many may in the future, but it's still in that zoning that would have allowed that. So, and I also was looking at some of your criteria on how you've allowed D1 throughout the other areas, and I'm not adjacent to single family, and I'm across from the Lincoln Center, which is a public building. I'm across from a church. So I think there's a very good barrier already that can keep me consistent with D1, and as I'm studying Forest, I see that there's some inconsistencies and things that were allowed there, and where Franklin comes in and there's single family homes. So I just kind of studied your formula on it, and I think that we have a really strong position to request to keep D1. On the parking lot on the corner, I know it's spot zoning, and you may keep that D2. It is nice to keep it all consistent on the block, but I understand if that stays D2 and that these 2 parcels remain at D1. I think I've covered that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here. George Durantz from 932 Maple, and I'm speaking on behalf of Teach Beyond, which is the owner of 932. We'd like to go on record affirming what Teresa Schultz has already stated at 928. We'd like to see it remain as D1. We relocated to Downers Grove earlier this year from another village far away, and we came because it was a beautiful village, very nicely located, access to the train, delightful core, and good services in the region there. We didn't relocate to where we did because it was a beautiful building. It's not an architectural wonder, and we entered into a discussion, informal discussion, straight away with the Schultzes about some development down the way, which we thought might be helpful to the town. We came in as a nonprofit. We're an international agency that provides educational services around the world. And we recognize that there would be ways that we could redevelop that property that would be advantageous to the city. I think it could be aesthetically pleasing, add to the, maybe not the quaintness, you can't maybe make a quaint 21st century building, but we thought that there was lots of room in the zoning that was there to create something that would be really attractive to the town, as well as functional for us as a nonprofit. So we'd just like to say that we really affirm the direction that the overall plan is going. We'd like to ask that the little piece that we're a part of remain as it was, which gives maximum flexibility for planning and thinking ahead. And we hope that in the process we can come up with something that would work. We'd be working together with the Schultzes, I think, and something that would be very pleasing to the local people as well as functional for us. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. Other questions or comments from members of the audience on this item? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Willis Johnson, 603 Rogers. And I guess I should have looked at the chart in the most recent handout a little closer, but I have concern about DE1 with the side yard and rear yard setback. There is no setback in front, but there is a 5-foot side yard setback or 10% of the lot width, and there's a 10-foot rear yard setback. And I think if you, in looking at most of the property at this moment designated DE1, it would seem that would not be a good move. That would be, and it would be contrary to what has been in the past. I think the zoning that we presently have, obviously my my biggest concern in talking tonight is the Tivoli property. At this time, the property is, we are permitted to build, as far as I know, we are permitted to build a lot line to lot line, and a side yard and a rear yard would impact it. But I think a number of the majority of the property in DE1 would be impacted by that. So I'd ask you to relook at that.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? Good evening, welcome.
So I'll just reiterate, so the property in concern that I'm concerned with, I think being DE2 is a huge problem. I'd hate to see a 5-story building, and I think it should be transitional to match across the street. I mean, it just kind of only makes sense that we not be allowed to build a 50-foot tall building there. Again, it's a very high impactful corner. It's subjected to pedestrians, automobiles, the train. So I really will go on record as saying that I am opposed to it being DE2 and that it needs to be changed to a DT. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input on that. Third time's a charm.
At least I'm not following Willis Johnson. That's a hard act to follow.
Don't even try.
I won't.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening. For the record, Dan McCormick. I'm the owner with my wife at 5205 South Washington Street in Downers Grove. Our concern is the DT section that Mr. White and Mr. Barnett discussed pertaining to designating that strip as DT as opposed to anything else. While we were looking at this, we noticed that we are virtually surrounded by DE1 and DE2. There is really no reason why this particular block should be singled out as DT. We're surrounded by, DE1 to the north, E1 and E2 to the west, and then 2 to the northeast. I mean, the only issue would be you have a residence that straddles the back of our lot, and that's zoned residential. So there is absolutely no way, or virtually no way anyway, that we could build the 5-story marquee or whatever it is on that block. It makes perfect sense to then to make sure that remove that out of DT and make it an either or 1 or 2. Under DT also there is a parking restriction. Now that doesn't make too much sense as far as that's concerned because we have this thing called a parking garage right across the street. I have tenants. I rent out my office space to a couple of attorneys, and they park in the parking garage. They pay for the space. Also, under the land use section, it is now designated that offices are now listed as a special use. Well, when you look at that block, 4 of the 5 buildings that you're talking about are offices. Why would you designate that now as a special use? The way we kind of see it, and I'm speaking not only for myself, but also for my neighbors to the south, both the personal residents as well as the guy in the corner, we see that as we're having our rights taken away for planning that you may have approved in the past, but now you don't like. And yet tonight, we're still being taxed as a downtown business. So we would ask, well, before I ask, when we were in law school, remember the old saying that, big cases make bad law? Well, I would also submit to you that big buildings make bad planning. So I would ask respectfully that the council remove that portion of Washington Street from DT and either redesignate it as either DT1 or DT2. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate the input. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, well, thank you for everyone that came down and stayed patiently in order to share your views and thoughts with us. Again, feel free to follow up with any members of the council and staff Saturday from 9 to 10 at the Downers Grove Public Library. There'll be an opportunity to come talk to us there as well. And as was mentioned, some of the details can yet be worked out in the process. So I'll come back to the council then. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Waldeck?
Just a quick comment, Mayor. Comments were made about not having notice. All of these meetings appear on the website, including the coffee with the council. So if you routinely check at least at the beginning of the week, the village website and drop down to this week's meetings, you'll not only see the agenda for all for the village council, but also traffic and parking and all our plan commission, etc. And you'll even find the coffee with the council on there. So those people that maybe didn't get their personal email or notifications, that you at least once a week check the village website, and all the public meetings are there. And as the mayor said, you can still contact us personally. Just make that suggestion. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Earl.
And the village website is updated by 5 p.m. on Friday, the Friday before the next starting week. So anything that's going to happen the next week, check after 5 p.m. on Friday, and you'll know what's going on the whole next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White.
Well, to follow up on the public notice engagement on this, I believe it's very important that everybody have a chance to have their say. I would just remind people that not only this is the first reading, tonight's the first reading to give staff direction to create documents which we will then vote on at some point many months in the future. So we're a long ways from a final decision. So when you come here this evening for the first time, you haven't missed anything. Well, you may have missed a little preliminary discussion, but nothing is final because we're still talking. Now, we're getting some guidance and general direction the way that we're headed. I think we're generally in the right direction with a few specific properties that are a little bit problematic. I just want to mention briefly, on the east side of Washington, it's my understanding that the idea of switching it to DT from DE was to address setback issues, which are going to be reconsidered in general, but bringing up special use for offices and things like that, that's potentially problematic. So that's one of the properties that's going to require further thought before we finalize it. So that, the northwest corner of Washington and Maple, and the southwest corner of Rogers and Warren, I see competing interests, competing views, and that's going to have to be settled before we adopt the final zoning ordinance, but it won't be settled this evening, and it won't be settled next week either.
And the reason it won't be settled next week is I do not plan on putting it on the agenda for next week. We will put this on for some time in January. I'd like the opportunity for folks to interact informally with the council and interact informally with the staff. So we'll aim for the middle part of January.
Excellent. Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to remind everybody that's watching the process that this is obviously, as my colleagues keep reminding everybody, a long ways from settled, but its intention is very much to reconsider and possibly adjust the direction forward. So when the comments are made, why change, or it would be a change, yeah, it would. That's sort of the point. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We haven't decided exactly what those changes are, but the idea that, well, it shouldn't change because that would be a change is not, at least for this council person, terribly meaningful. There's a process in place by which we're evaluating what we think it should be. In some cases, that will, in fact, result in a change. This town has changed a ton over the last 150 or whatever number of years. It's changed an enormous amount in the last 15. And what this council is doing is what every council has done to some degree more than others. Certainly it's been enhanced with comprehensive planning that Commissioner White was referring to, but every council has reconsidered and thought about what their planning should look like, whether it's Lakota plans or the 1965 plan or whatever. and rethought their ordinances, and that's what we're engaging in now. The idea that it's not going to change, it is going to change. There's going to be some change. There's 30 or so areas up there that there's broad agreement on. Many of them are, in fact, changes. Expect that there will be some. We haven't figured out what they are, and there's no landing spot yet, but there will definitely be some changes. And in any change, any policy change results in some people that like it and some people that don't. Just know that we're doing this in a deliberate fashion with enormous amount of transparency and an enormous amount of opportunity that continues for people to be engaged and to give us their 2 cents as we try and figure it out.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to pick up on that, I'll give a couple of specific examples. For many years, this village used to allow something called flag lots. And there were people that had the expectation they could continue to divide their properties in that way. And the future council, one that I was a part of, thought that that was the most ridiculous idea in the world. It was terrible. It was bad policy for a number of reasons, and they were eliminated. So we used to have a land use that was allowed, and it was eliminated because things changed. And the community decided that having one house behind another for a whole host of reasons was not a good idea going forward. So that was eliminated. That was changed. I'm sure there were some people that didn't like that, but the majority of the community thought that that was a bad idea. And then, if I'm not wrong, once upon a time we had a big bunch of agricultural zoning, didn't we? We got rid of that too. So I'm not trying to be flippant, but Commissioner Barnett is correct. There are changes with every comprehensive plan, and those big aspirational, visionary changes have already been made through a very deliberative, mindful process with a great deal of input from the community. And now we're continuing to move down into more granular levels of detail, and we're not even down to the lowest level yet. So this is a process, but there will be some change. But sure, we want to strike the right balance, and we want to get it. We want to get it right, which is why it's very deliberative, and why your input and continued input is so much appreciated. Any other questions from members of the Village Council? Obviously, as mentioned, we are not voting on this tonight or next week. Very good. Next item, please. Thank you for everyone's comments.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. The next 3 items are generally referred to as budget implementation items because these are actions which support the recently approved FY18 municipal budget. Here to present these items is our Assistant Director of Finance, Carol Hogan.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have 3 budget implementation items to present this evening. The first item is a change to the interest rate assumption in the police and fire pension funding policy from 7.25% to 7%. This is based on recommendations from both pension boards after extensive discussion with the board's investment consultant and actuary. The second item is an increase in the stormwater rate from $10.53 per ERU to $11.43 per ERU. And this increase is consistent with the 2018 budget that was approved last week and pursuant to direction from the Village Council during long-range planning. The last item is to delete the special rates for the sale of water to residents on Roslyn Road to reflect the changes made by the intergovernmental agreement with Westmont in March of 2017. The Roslyn Road residents have been notified of the change, and the new rates will go into effect for bills sent out after January 1st of 2018. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And Manager Fieldman, you called these budget implementation items. So basically, in layman's terms, these are changes that need to be made to the budget to reflect either actions that the council has taken on items that mandate those changes, or, as in the case of the interest rate assumptions, changes that have occurred somewhat externally, but not really. Yes, kind of.
Yes, definitely.
We don't have a lot of choice with that, do we?
They are autonomous boards as well, and some recent changes in the Government Accounting Standards Board requires the council to adopt its own policy. They should match.
Right. So basically, that's what we're doing, is we're making adjustments to the budget to reflect reality.
Well said.
It's a good concept to adhere to in government. Thank you. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of reflecting reality, I want to applaud the pension boards for reducing their assumed rate of return. Quarter point may not look like much, but it can translate to a whole lot. And the green sheet is right. It really is a little bit of an increase in pain in the short term, but I think it's better off in the long term. as a bit of background for those of you who don't know, I actually represent pension funds, not too dissimilar from this in my day job. Given the restrictions on what a government pension fund can invest in and what the different ratios have to be, this is, I think, a very smart move to make sure that we continue to hit the intended rate of return in the future so that the pension funds continue to grow in the way we need them to, and we don't end up unintentionally underfunding our pension fund. Shifting gears to the stormwater rates, I want to thank staff for answering the question there at the very end of the council questions. Obviously, we've fallen off the original multi-year plan, which called for a fee for this year of between $12.18 and $12.48. But the revised multi-year plan called for $11.48. I'm wondering, I mean, I don't want to throw nickels around like they're manhole covers, but I'm wondering how we got to $11.43 as opposed to $11.48 for this year.
We decided instead of making it an 8.7% increase, a 0.5% increase.
Very good. Thanks, Nick. You're welcome. Same reason why things are sold for $2.99. Sure. Other questions or comments from members of the council on any of those three budget implementation items? Questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, very good. Thank you.
It's our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. I have several items to report out on. First of all, as in case no one was listening earlier on, we are having coffee with the council this Saturday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. at the Downers Grove Public Library. It's an opportunity for members of the community to come by and visit with members of the village council and staff on an informal basis. Come by, have a cup of coffee, and share with us whatever's on your mind. Look forward to seeing you there. Second of all, I'm very proud to make an announcement. Some of my colleagues know about this already. But every year, the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference gives a very prestigious award. It's called the Governmental Leader of the Year Award, and it's just as prestigious and as difficult to attain as the name indicates. And I'm very proud to say, and we all should be very proud today, that the 2017 recipient of the DuPage Mayors and Managers Governmental Leader of the Year Award is none other than our very own Village Manager David Fieldman. And before he says anything, I want to read exactly what the supporting nomination that resulted in the award, which was unanimously adopted by the DuPage Mayors and Managers Board of Directors. The nomination, which was submitted by another community, goes as follows. Throughout the past year, Mr. Fieldman has not only served the community of Downers Grove in the fullest capacity, he has also found time to chair the demanding DMMC Managers Committee, which he kind of founded. Between a complicated state of Illinois budget process, a mountain of proposed legislation, a rewrite of the DMMC bylaws, and serving on the DUGIS committee, Mr. Fieldman has kept a level head on the committee and expertly guided the managers through difficult waters. Mr. Fieldman has proven himself not only as a leader, but also as a consensus builder in an environment fraught with well-established opinions, positions, and personalities. And if you think that that investment of Mr. Fieldman's time is not reaped rewards, I think he could tell you better than I that his service has returned a great deal to us in the respect and contributions of his colleagues and peers throughout DuPage County that then the village of Downers Grove and the residents of Downers Grove directly benefit from. And time does not permit me to go through examples, but I, on behalf of myself and the entire village council, want to congratulate Mr. Fieldman for receiving this recognition. It's well-deserved, and really to be recognized like this by your peers across all DuPage County is quite an honor, so congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
And now you're free to...
It's quite a humbling experience, as you know, and you saw, Mayor, at the board meeting. I was shocked to see my name on that nomination form. I am very humbled by this. Really, all we're doing in DMMC is doing things the Downers Grove way, which is a team approach of consensus building, and it's reflective of not only the council, but every single staff member here, and now it's in the DNA of the DMMC, the conference itself. I feel like I'm just a messenger of the way we do things here in Downers Grove, and I'm very humbled by the award. Thank you.
And once again, congratulations. And we'll have to find we'll have to find it somewhere prominent, because that Spartan office that you have, we'll have to put that plaque somewhere where it can be appreciated.
Thank you so much.
One last thing, as long as I'm in the habit of embarrassing people, I'm also going to embarrass one of my colleagues. One of my colleagues is experiencing a birthday, so I want to very publicly wish happy birthday to Commissioner Nicole Wallace.
Thank you.
24?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's all I have to report. That then brings us to the manager's report. Back to you, Mr. Fieldman.
No reports tonight, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Item 11, the village attorney's report. Ms. Petrarca.
Thank you, Mayor. 3 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance authorizing the extension of a planned unit development site plan approval to allow additional signage at 3300 Finley Road till December 20th, 2018. An ordinance amending the stormwater utility rates, and an ordinance repealing water rates furnished by other municipalities. That is all, Mayor. They will all appear on next week's active agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 12, council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to report out either on goings-on in the community or other items of interest to the community, or to report to the rest of the council with respect to their roles as liaisons to some other governmental or quasi-governmental agency. I will start to my far right tonight. I'll leave the birthday girl for last. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to join the mayor and everyone in congratulating Manager Fieldman, and thank you for all the work that you do and everyone on staff to put us in a position to make great policy. Thank you. Now, we didn't have council member new business, so I hope you'll grant me just a little bit of leeway here. But
I can look the other way for a couple minutes.
Well, no. I'd like to make a motion that next week's meeting be conducted by the mayor completely in his sports announcers.
We'll pass that back.
We don't hear that nearly enough.
Need an extra picture.
Other than that, I have no further report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully my voice will be up to it next week. Appreciate that. Commissioner Wallach.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things from the downtown management. First off, at the last meeting it was pointed out that there were some problems with the gingerbread house at the beginning of the season, and they pointed out that Willis and Shirley Johnson and the Johnson family volunteered to bring it up to code, I guess, and that they spawned the job. So thank you to the Johnsons for their contribution.
Do we need to look at the setback and bulk requirements for the gingerbread house? Well, what style gingerbread house is that? Is that really compatible with the downtown?
I strongly urge the code enforcement people to stay away. Or you will find coal in your stocking. I also am happy that this week I got a missive from the downtown management folks. Linda and Aaron sent me something, so I didn't have to wing it. However, I read the first 3 words that said, "Grab your spouse," and I thought, well, maybe we ought to change that a little bit. Either it's figuratively or literally, I don't know which. Grab your spouse, your friends or family, and shop and dine at nearly 20 of our downtown boutiques, businesses, during Merry Madness. Now, I think, Mayor, I was thinking that maybe if Commissioner Olson was here with it, when he was a commissioner, had that very deep voice. But if you could do the Merry Madness thing as they do on the radio, that'd be nice. But anyway, it's Merry Madness Day on December 14th from 5 to 8 o'clock. Please come to and shop at the downtown businesses. There are 20 boutiques to help them complete your Christmas shopping requirements. Also, after shopping, there's a number of great restaurants that you can stop off and enjoy a good meal with the family and kind of assemble your purchases, hopefully. Also, on the 14th from 5 to 8, they're going to, now they have the gingerbread manhunt, and any forms that are turned in on the 14th, they're going to have a special drawing for $100 worth of downtown management or downtown business certificates that you can use. So that's an added reason to shop on Merry Madness Day. Also, beginning to lose my voice here. So that will be a gingerbread reward card for $100. Also, let's see, there's some, lost it here. Also, there's 100, okay, in addition to the special drawing for the $100, there's also a gingerbread card for if you're wandering around shopping and you have a shopping bag or shopping bags from the downtown, there are elves. I'm told they're real elves, and they will present you with a possibility, a gift certificate for additional shopping in the downtown. So, December 14th, 5 to 8 p.m. Just get downtown, do your shopping, have a chance for added drawing and additional gift certificates. And we'll see what happens next week. Remember, the 14th only leaves you 10 days left for Christmas shopping, so please get down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that detailed rendition of all the exciting things that are going on during Merry Madness.
There we go.
Commissioner Barnett.
Mayor, I'm a little sideways on you. I just needed to take my couple of minutes here of opportunity. You ended with your closing arguments on that tax levy, making some assertions and assigning some motives that I didn't have a chance to respond to, and that's kind of not fair. So I'm just going to say briefly, without debating the subject, that this council member has, for 9 years now, preceding your time in the Senate chair, been part of councils which have focused heavily on lean, efficient operation of the village, and those things have paid us well, and not focusing neatly or leveraging assets, but actually employing lean principles to operations and to budgeting processes. And that's an important thing that has served us well. What was unsaid was that we now, for the last 3 years of those 9 years, I've been complaining, whining, pick your choice of words, about the unsustainability of our process, many times with you in agreement. That came to home this year in a budget that was initially passed as a deficit. We moved some funds to make it not look like a deficit, but it's here. That time has come. And so, to use your words, we have but our voice and our vote. And so enough was enough. Those may sound familiar this evening. Bill, I'm certainly not looking for a catastrophe. You know better than that. And one vote tonight does not a catastrophe create. So we all will do our best, I'm sure, myself included, in 2018 to make the best of whatever decisions this council makes and try and work on behalf of the village moving forward with those. But like you tonight, I exercise my voice and my vote to say enough was enough. Hopefully things will get better going forward.
Fair enough, and if you took anything I said to be some kind of underhanded criticism, then I think it was misperceived. I was simply using this example, actually, as to exactly what I was doing, which was you voted your conscience, I voted mine, just for different reasons.
Yeah, what you suggested, Mayor, was that Commissioner Barnett wants to try and do more and cost more, and there's try to do more as part of it, but we've had a lot of conversations about costs, and we haven't addressed those in a way that's satisfactory. So there's an issue there when you assign an assertion of a motive and don't allow a commissioner to set it up.
Yeah, but actually, Commissioner, I disagree with you. That was not all my intention. It was just simply an observation. I think you're on record as saying more than once, for example, with the food and beverage tax that we passed, you actually voted against it because it wasn't high enough.
Yep.
And you're on record saying that. It's not my opinion.
I'm on the record as talking about cost reductions and personnel.
And I said that. I thought I said that, Commissioner. If you took that the wrong way, then it's unfortunate.
You may have intended to, but you didn't.
Sir, I included you in the prior councils who have brought us in the position of being in the sustainable place that we're at. My simple point is that you have been on record more than once as saying we need to have higher property taxes so we can put in more stormwater, more curb and gutter. That's not a criticism. That's actually the cause you've championed.
I've been on record as saying that I don't think our priorities of spending are correct, Mayor, and that if it resulted in higher property taxes, that may be. But Mayor, you are taking advantage of a situation. Everything in context. In all of those conversations were additional conversations about cost reductions that were necessary. And if you go back to prior to your time here, in some of those most difficult times, in fact, we did raise taxes after cutting first. And the way we should operate, the way the state should operate, the way the village should operate is to look at costs first And we've chosen as a council largely to avoid looking at the costs that are the real costs. We've nitpicked at the edges and managed to shuffle the deck chairs to get to the point where we haven't had to raise taxes, but we have raised taxes and we have implemented new taxes. And now that came to an end. We finally had to actually make some adjustments, pure accounting things, so we didn't pass a deficit. So enough was enough.
All right. Well, I really am somewhat shocked and surprised that you took anything I said that way. It was not meant that way. It was simply making an observation that different people voted on the tax levy for different reasons. Ours were very different, and quite frankly, my time predates yours quite a bit. So I'm very cognizant of things going all the way back to 2001.
What might help going forward would be if you used your closing argument time to not make assertions about others' motives when they weren't stated.
Fair enough. I will go out of my way not to mention you in the future.
That would be helpful. Consider
it done. Not even in a sports announcer voice. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Earl.
This time last year, I was actually talking about the library and saying, help us get to 1 million items checked out. They blew past 1 million items this year right after Thanksgiving. So let's see how far we can get past 1 million items, because we're already to 1 million items checked out, and looking forward to see if we can hit a new high number. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner White.
Well, first, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Wallace on her 29th birthday. The 24th is incorrect.
I like that.
But also, I do want to congratulate Manager Fieldman on winning the award. I want to take my time to talk briefly about the value of DMMC. I think what this helps point out, in my experience, well, it's DuPage mayors and managers. But in my experience of listening and hearing about it, I've mostly heard about the mayors, because on social media or on when Mayor Tully talks about DMMC at these meetings. But managers get equal billing. And what I've observed behind the scenes is that the village's participation in DMMC from the manager and staff point of view provides invaluable resources, that the collaboration ideas and sharing of ideas with other villages has been immensely valuable to the community. So this is slightly different than congratulating Manager Fieldman, which is very well deserved. It's also, though, that the investment in DMMC is extraordinarily valuable, not just from the mayor's point of view, but from the manager's point of view as well. And that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last but not least, the 24-year-old. Oh, Commissioner Waldeck.
Yes, if I may.
With Commissioner Wallace's permission.
Yes. Thank you. My name was brought up in your previous conversation, so I thought I'd make a personal point. I only commented that if you look at the council responses to questions, I asked the question, what would happen if we didn't approve the levy? And the results of not approving a levy by December 31st are clearly written in those responses. And I'll stand by that. I'll stand by the question. I'll stand by the responses because they came from staff. So vote for or against, whatever your conscience is. But it is what it is. So I don't know why my name was brought up specifically, because I didn't attack anyone specifically, but that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just not going to mention any of you for the rest of the year.
Got one more week.
And last but not least, to end on a happy note.
I just want to say
Commissioner Wallace.
Congratulations to Manager Fieldman. It's always nice to be recognized when you work really hard. So congratulations again, and thank you for the birthday wishes. I will be celebrating my birthday tomorrow with a day off work and time with my family. That is all, man.
Outstanding. Just checking. I have nothing further, so with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and good night.